Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, which is of course the sequel to Rian Johnson's first film back in 2019, and I absolutely love that first film. It is one of my favorite films of all time. If you notice, I actually have the go board from that first movie because I absolutely love it. And so I was very excited for this movie. So I actually watched it twice in November because of course you had to have a second watch on one of these Knives Out films because Rian Johnson's going to put so many little details and so many little just changes in the film when you watch it for a second time. So of course I want to do a spoiler review for this film. So if you've not seen Glass Onion yet, it's actually dropping on Netflix today. It's dropping right now, right when this video drops. It should be on the streaming service, so you can go check out that movie and then come back, watch my spoiler thoughts, or you can go check out my non-spoiler review for the film back that I released in November. So you can go ahead and check out that, then watch the movie, then watch this, and just have a great time with me and with Rian Johnson talking about this film. So let's just jump right into this thing. What is this film about? Well, essentially BENOIT BLANC is on yet another mystery trying to solve a murder. This time it is on this private island run by a tech mogul, essentially. He is a billionaire. He has all the resources in the world, and he has a group of friends who is all essentially attached to him because of his money, because of his wealth, and just the sort of influence he can give on all of these people and that corruptness that you find with all of these different characters. And one of them killed somebody, and we got to figure out who done it. That is a very basic premise of this, but of course it is a Knives Out movie, so it's going to have a lot of different twists and turns and have convoluted plots. But actually at the center of this film, like its title, it is a glass onion. It is very transparent, it's very straightforward, to a point to where the actual reveal of this film is very dumb on purpose, and it's very obvious from the very beginning. And I'll point out some of that stuff now because it is a transparent thing that feels like it has so many layers, but it is extremely simple at its core. So let's go character by character, and the first person I want to talk about in this film is going to be Janelle Monáe as ANDI Brand. And as you find out throughout the film, she's actually playing Helen Brand, the twin sister of ANDI Brand, who is actually murdered off screen before the actual events of this movie kicks off, which I think is a brilliant thing because the first 45 minutes of the movie, you're kind of waiting for the murder to happen. You're kind of, BENOIT BLANC is invited to this private island. He's kind of meeting all these different characters and it's kind of setting up all the different pieces in this chessboard, and you're kind of waiting for the gun to go off. You're waiting for the person to be killed this entire first 45 minutes, only to find out that the game has already started, that you are already put right in the middle of it, and the entire time both Janelle Monáe's character and Daniel Craig's character is trying to figure out the murder of her own sister. And so it has a lot of great different ideas when you watch this movie again. Like I said, Rian Johnson is great at kind of recontextualizing the entire events of this film on second watch, because that first 45 minutes is so much more interesting on rewatch. So what exactly happened to ANDI Brand's character? Well, essentially she was a friend of this entire friend group from the very beginning, and she decided to bring in a new person, Miles BRON, who had a lot of great ideas, who had so much potential in her eyes. And so she brings him in and she comes up with this idea for this company, and it blows up. It makes so much money, and Miles BRON is the partner in this entire company. But when it comes to the future, when he gets more greedy and when he comes up with this idea for this thing called CLAIR, which could possibly give a lot of just clean energy to kind of sustain the world and the power to get rid of, these normal carbon gases that are released into the world, even though it is dangerous, ANDI Brand's character decides to try to leave the company, but instead he pushes her out and just takes away everything from her. So she has lost everything. He is taking credit for the company. She is entirely screwed over by him, and all these different people in this friend group, because they're so latched on to his success and to his money for various different reasons, they all decide to abandon and also betray ANDI Brand's character. And all of this legal battle hinges upon a napkin that it was the original idea for this company that she scribbled on in the bar called the Glass Onion all those years ago, but she seems to have lost it. So she lost the court case, but she finds it again, sends an email to everybody saying, this is your last chance to tell the truth before I blow up Miles BRON's entire reputation and company, and she gets back what she deserves. But before she can do that, Miles BRON swipes in and actually kills ANDI Brand. So he is actually the killer. He is the whodunit person, and it's very obvious from the very beginning of the film, because once you find the halfway point of the film and you figure out that it's actually Helen who is being played by Janelle Monáe, and that ANDI Brand was actually dead this entire time, and she's kind of impersonating her in order to figure out who the actual killer is on this island. And they say whoever has the most interesting reaction to first seeing ANDI Brand show up on this island should be the killer, because only the killer will know that Helen has taken the place of her sister, because everybody else thinks that she is still alive. So this puts up all the different puzzle pieces very well. And when Miles BRON first sees, ANDI Brand's character, he has a very odd reaction. He's very surprised. He's very shocked to see her, but it's very kind of two-sided, because he could be shocked because, he screwed her over. Why is she showing up to this island when he is fully not expecting her to show up whatsoever? But also he could have the reaction of, oh, she's showing up, I'm shocked because she's supposed to be dead. And so it's a very kind of two-sided coin where it could go either way, which gives enough mystery in this film to be like, maybe it isn't him. Maybe it is somebody else who did the actual murdering. Maybe there's two people, maybe there's just him, maybe it's just somebody else. There's so many different ways this movie could have gone down, but because that reaction is so strong and it's such the obvious choice, he has all the different motivations to kill her because she is the main threat to all of his money and all of his success, just all crumbling down, and just he is the obvious choice to be the killer. But this movie throws all these different kind of red herrings at you. This is essentially red herring the movie. There are so many red herrings in this film with the rest of the ensemble that is just so fascinating. And there's honestly a couple things about this film when I compare it to the first one that I actually find are an improvement. I don't think this movie is better than the first Knives Out movie, although I hear some people saying that it is better for them. I just love Knives Out so much that this one just can't surpass it, but it was a brilliant movie. It's one of my favorites of the year, and I think the two things that actually do improve on this movie is that second watch. I think that second watch is so much more entertaining than the second watch for the first Knives Out movie, even though that one did transform on second watch. This one just even more so. It's just a completely different film. And the other thing is the ensemble at large, because if you watch Knives Out, you know that the three main characters really just are Daniel Craig, Ana de Armas, and Chris Evans. And I love all three of those actors, and they're brilliant in that film. But when you have a whodunit with such a great cast that Knives Out did, everybody else just feels like side characters. They feel like secondary characters to those three lead characters, whereas this film, everybody is on the exact same level. Everybody is equally as interesting. Everybody is equally as much a possible suspect in this film, and you really don't know who it is throughout the entire thing, even though it is painfully obvious. The movie throws so many interesting things with all these other characters that make you think it could be someone else. And so the standout of this film is actually Birdie J. Kate Hudson's character in this film is actually the standout for me because she is just so damn funny in this film. And I think that's another thing that I want to praise about this movie is the comedy and the satire in it, and the fact that Miles Braun and the whole thing, this movie was released during the week of Thanksgiving, which is when Elon Musk bought Twitter. And of course now after a month of that whole disaster happening on Twitter, it is just so funny to see how perfectly timed this one is in that satire of, you know, the rich and powerful, the billionaires being so incredibly dumb, yet looking like a genius to the outside world, to the people who will kind of buy into his bullshit. And that is just kind of the just essence that his character gives out. And the Birdie J character is just so funny when it comes to that satire, when it comes to like the influencers of the world, the ones who had parties during COVID and said that it was no big deal, the ones who wore masks with holes in it. She is such a funny presence in this film. There's two moments towards the end of the film, like the last 15 minutes, that had me dying laughing. She is so funny in this film. I just love the comedy that specifically that she brought to this film. It was just brilliant. And of course, Edward Norton was great as that Miles Braun character. Of course, being that rich billionaire, he is so interesting in this film. And the fact that on second watch you hear him just say these words that are definitely not words, or he's misusing words to make himself seem smarter than he is, but on first watch he's just kind of speaking and it just goes right over your head. He says words that don't even exist, yet you don't notice because you're kind of trying to hone in on the movie itself and you're not noticing these things that just kind of fade into the background. And that's kind of what this movie is all about. It's about things kind of fading into the background, even though the movie is literally telling you the answers, yet it's kind of going too fast for your brain to kind of comprehend all these stupid things that Miles Braun's character is doing throughout this entire thing. There's a great moment where he's talking to Dave Bautista's character by the pool, and Dave Bautista is saying, oh, remember when you almost pancaked me on the road coming from Andy's house? But instead of Andy's house, he changes to Anderson Cooper's house. And so he just kind of interrupts him to be able to cover his own tracks, which I think is genius on second watch. I didn't notice that at all first time watching it, and when I watched it the second time, I looked over to my sister and was like, I can't believe that. That is so clever. It was just brilliant. It was a great moment on second watch that just completely changes the film. And so with Miles Braun and Edward Norton's character being the obvious choice, I love that he is the solution, because by the end of the film, and you're seeing everything crumble around him, yet he burns the little napkin at the end of the film, and he's very much untouchable, which is very true when it comes to the rich and the powerful. They can get away with nearly anything. They can get away with murder, and so his smugness, his kind of snarkiness, his know-it-all nature, even though he is a complete moron, and the performance that Edward Norton gives gives is really brilliant. I loved him in this film. And of course, you have the one returning cast member in this film from the first one, which is Daniel Craig's character as Benoit Blanc. And I love his character so much. I love his accent. I love his over-the-top nature. I love his mannerisms, just everything about him. And you get to find out little bits and pieces of his home life in this one. When you get to see him at his home during COVID, he has nothing to do. He feels lost without his mysteries that he needs to solve. He's trying to play Among Us with a bunch of different cameos on Zoom, which was pretty funny. But he's really bad at really dumb games like Among Us, like Clue, which is why he's so bad at solving the mystery of this film, because he thinks it's going to be so complicated. He thinks that there's so much more to this story. He solves the kind of fake murder mystery game that Miles Bron set up on this island in an instant because it was so convoluted, but he can't solve this very simple mystery where a character kills another character because they had the evidence that would take him down. Is very, very simple. It's very stupid, and his motivations and how obvious everything is so clear as day that it kind of goes over his head, and I find that's very human. I find that very admirable to have this character that is so smart and so just so much of a genius in that last film kind of being against his ultimate enemy in this one. The purest dumb soul that he could possibly go against is exactly what he's going against. And so kind of rounding out the cast, you also have Dave Bautista, who's kind of like the Andrew Tate of this film, if you will. He's that kind of streamer that just says a lot of womanizing, just very sexist things, but it is Dave Bautista because, you know, he's very charming. You kind of love his performance, and he's kind of lovable anyway, which is kind of perfect for this type of character. And his mom was also hilarious in this film in the beginning. So funny. But like I said, this film has a great ensemble because he's actually the first one to die on screen. He's the one who drinks out of Miles's glass and he dies. Everybody thinks it's poison, that he was poisoned, but it was some elaborate thing that Miles Bron set up, but really he just poured some pineapple juice in his drink, which is very funny. I love the idea that this movie having red herrings and the fact that people will believe what you say versus what they actually experience, and it's kind of, you're able to manipulate memories in such an easy way because Miles Bron just says, oh, I put the glass down and he must have grabbed my own, when in reality, Miles Bron literally handed him the glass, and when you rewatch the film, he does hand him the glass, and when they're kind of like manipulating the memories, you see something else, and it's very smart of them to play with your mind in that way that happens in real life, because if you witness a crime and you see somebody running away with a red jacket, but then all of a sudden somebody says, oh, I think it was blue, and now you're like, oh, maybe it was blue. I think it was a blue jacket. And now that memory is so inaccurate, so just not reliable at all. And this movie plays with that idea. But even though he dies first, just because this is such a great ensemble film, because it doesn't play in kind of chronological order, it has a non-linear storytelling kind of method to these Knives Out movies, you get to still see him throughout the entire film. You get to see his different motives. You get to see flashbacks to when you're kind of rewatching the entire movie from Helen's perspective instead of from Benoit Blanc's perspective. And so it just has a lot of different detail with this character. You get to see him throughout the film. So he doesn't just die at the beginning, you never see him again. He's throughout the entire thing, which is really fun. Kathryn Hahn and Leslie Odom Jr. kind of played the politician and the scientist that are both kind of working with Miles Bron's character, and they have their own different motives that kind of tie into the CLAIR thing, where they know this CLAIR kind of development that Miles Bron is doing is dangerous. They know that it's not going to be healthy, that it's not going to be good for the world in general, because it is so flammable, because it is so dangerous, yet they are so greedy of, you know, like Kathryn Hahn's character wanting to be reelected, or Leslie Odom Jr.'s character wanting to have his reputation still stay strong and trying to hold on to the genius that is Miles Bron, even though he knows based on science that it is dangerous, which happens a lot of times in real life. So I loved their kind of interactions in this film. I also did like Jessica Henwick and Madelyn Cline. Even though they weren't in the film as much, I still enjoyed, you know, Jessica Henwick's kind of facial reactions and kind of goofy performance in this film, and Madelyn Cline's kind of rapport that she has with Janelle Monáe's character, with kind of bonding on their own, trying to escape the under the thumb of the men in this film. I think that is also kind of a nice little connection that they make in this film as well. So the entire cast is great. I think the ensemble plays really well. I think every single one of those characters had good motives to actually kill Dave Bautista's character, which is kind of the first whodunit thing, and then every single one of those characters also had motives to kill Janelle Monáe's character. So this movie has so many different layers, so many different characters that you can kind of peel back and look at, but like I said, at its core, it is a very simple film. And when I talk about the end of this film, when you think that Miles Bron is going to get away with everything that he's done in this film, you feel so bad for Janelle Monáe's characters, because for one, Andi Brand lost everything. She lost her money, she lost her reputation, she lost her company, she lost her friends, everything she has lost, including her life. And now Helen has lost her sister, and so they have lost everything, and she's so down on her luck. But Benoit Blanc gives her one last little push, and she decides to be a disruptor. She decides to break all the glass in this place and just kind of burn it all down. She takes that bit of clear and she throws it into the fire, and the whole place just explodes, and it is such a satisfying moment. And even still, after all that, Miles Bron is like, oh, well, now what? You just burned the place down. You threw your little fits. Are you happy now? You still haven't achieved anything. And then they both go running for the little, jester statue that opens up the Mona Lisa because, of course, he's rich. He has the Mona Lisa. He's renting it from the Louvre because it's COVID and it's closed currently. And there's this mechanism that closes it every time there's, a loud noise or a phone goes off or, fire starts or anything like that to try to protect it. But he built a failsafe because he's a moron. And so they both run for this little jester thing. They slam it down, it opens, and they burn the Mona Lisa in this world. And, Miles Bron's character said throughout the entire film that he wants to do something. He wants to be a part of something that will be mentioned in the same sentence as the Mona Lisa, and that's exactly what he got. And so after it's clear that Miles Bron is going to go down, this clear thing is not going to go well because it's proved to be flammable and dangerous. His whole place blew up because of it, and because of that, he's burned the Mona Lisa, one of the most prized paintings of all time. He's now an infamous person that is going to be kind of scrutinized for all these things. Everybody decides to turn on Miles Bron in a very, very satisfying way. They're saying that they did see the napkin. They're saying they did see him that night that ANDI died, and they're just gonna help Helen bring him down fully. And I just wish real life can be like this. I wish real life can be this satisfying like the movies, but sometimes it's not as kind of a happy ending as the movies. But for this film, for that experience, it was so incredibly satisfying. Almost as satisfying as Elon Musk losing the poll for him to step down as CEO of Twitter. I really still hope that happens, and hopefully he doesn't set up a monster in his place, but still satisfying nonetheless. So that's going to be my review for Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery. What did you guys think of this film? What were your favorite jokes? What were your favorite reveals? Your favorite things in the background that you only notice on second watch? I'm very curious to hear all your thoughts. And would you also buy Jeremy Renner's hot sauce and Jared Leto's spiked kombucha? Would you buy it? Because I think it's hilarious, and maybe I would. So thanks everybody for watching this video. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and also check out my best movies of 2022, which I'm going to release on New Year's Eve. I'm very excited to talk about all of those films that I have on that list, and this film just may appear on that list. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one.